Sup shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to SP Reviews, where today we're going to be checking out a track by an artist named Todd Underwood off of their album called Upside Down, and the track itself is called Upside Down. So we're going to switch over to here. We got some really cool album art over here. We got like a split between the two, and we've got 13 tracks in this, and this was released this year. And we're going to listen to the first track from start to finish of this album, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Oh, I'm liking that kind of delay on that. That's a really cool introduction. Now, what is that instrument there? What is that? Is that like a little timpani or something like that? You know, one of those ones with the little tiny middle keys you go dun 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 dun. One of those ones. That's a hell of a bass tone as well. That's really sick. Really atmospheric, really engaging off the bat. Heck of an intro track. Well done. Have a ping pong delay on that. Now a little bit of modulation on it as well, that's cool. Oh, drums as well. And guitar riff. Really interesting panning, because I'm hearing the drums more on this side and I'm hearing the guitar more on that side. That's a nice little split there. I'm wondering if the drums will go back into the middle. Oh. There's like a modulated kit on the side that's got like a phaser or something like that on it. I gave everything I knew how. I'm sorry it wasn't enough for you. Wow, stunning. That had me going for a minute. I was thinking, wait, is this how this is gonna be done for the entire track? It's gonna be a little bit disconcerting having the drums pan like that, you know. But again, it was just more of a kind of a it was a heck of an intro. You don't really hear a minute long intros and tracks anymore. Typically people are very quick to get into it, but I think that in this instance, especially when you've got a whole album like this, it's justified. It's justified to have a little bit, because sometimes people don't even have more than a minute on the intro track. You know, it's kind of like a skit or something like that. And it's great that Todd Underwood turned it into an actual song like this. It's actually the longest one on the album, which is a very good. I hope you find everything you wanted. I wish the best for you. That drum recording is actually sick. Like the tone of the kicks and snares and such is just, you know, chef's kiss. That's beautiful. And his vocals are pristine, really well recorded, and he carries himself really well with his delivery and his technique. Sweet. I could never be all that you wanted. Damn, man, those vocal harmonies are sick though. I'm loving how tight the actual studio post is with this. Like the vocals don't sound like they're pumping at all. They're sitting very gently, very happily in the middle of all the other instruments. That this is a great indicator of how the rest of the album is going to be. I think it'd be fantastic. So far down, watch me drown. Damn, man. I don't know, like with the tone of the drums and all that, I was expecting some distorted or overdriven guitar in this bit. I'm not really sure what kind of genre of music this would fall into, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Todd Underwood going and sort of carving out sort of a niche for himself. That's great. Yeah, it's what I didn't expect, and I think that's really important from reviews, is to not go with the what's expected, is to try new things, you know.
No, not reviews. I mean, when you're making music, especially nowadays, where there's just so much of it around. That chord note groove on the bass is pretty dope as well. And like how like just the airiness of those guitar melodies, arpeggios on the sides, it's just beautiful, dude. There's a vulnerability, fragility to it. There's a trying to sort of understand the situation. And from what I can gather from the lyrics, you know, it sounds like there has been a separation of sorts. You know, like you look through the album, It's My Fault, Made to Be, Tell Me to Be Okay, Love Like That, Oh My Soul, Free to Forgive, I Miss You, Without You, Merry-Go-Round of Pain. This sounds like it's just, there's been a horrendous sort of sense of loss, that the relationship is broken down. You know, people have been hurt and they're struggling to cope and find. Damn, man. I die 1,000 deaths, think about what could be. Yeah, no, that's horrendous. It sounds like, you know, if this is from Todd's personal experiences, as most music is and should be, it should be about your life experiences, and because that's where you get the most genuine material from, right? It just sounds like a horrendous time for Todd. And this lyrics, the imagery is very, very visceral and very easy to comprehend and uncomfortable to imagine. Because it's raw, you know? I like the combination of the clean and sort of overdriven guitars in the mix as well. The drums are pretty sick in this as well. Like, I love the hi-hat work. You're going between 8ths and 16ths on that groove. There's quite a lot going on now. As a reviewer and as a listener, I'm sort of trying to figure out which one to follow. I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to be following one sort of channel of vocals or the other. I think this sort of represents the confusion and the suffering and just not being able to sort of... I gave everything I had, I'm sorry it wasn't enough. I know I'm probably paraphrasing here, but I think it's kind of like, that opening sentence after that break kind of captures the essence of this track. He's done everything he can. There's nothing more, and there's sort of a sense of helplessness. That kind of raise there at the end of that sort of first half of the hook is kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. It adds a little bit of extra sort of like oomph to that kind of thing before the repeat. Kind of acts like a pseudo kind of fill. You know, like that little bit of extra spice to keep you going for another round. It's sweet. Yeah, no, that what I really was liking about that hook in particular was that it did actually go where I thought it was going to go. And that's not me saying music should be about what I want. But it made sense to me that if there was going to have that sort of drum tone, that you'd go for that sort of distortion or overdriven kind of riff at some point, and that's what happened. And it was done sensationally. I was a little bit concerned with how that overdriven guitar was sounding when I first noticed it in that right side, whether it would come in just pan to that side. But of course, Todd Underwood has shown that he can play around with that and make it however the way he wants to. It's brilliant. It's a really brilliant track. We'll just listen out to the end. Just let that fade out. I'm assuming it's going to flow right into the next song. It's my fault. But yeah, really well done. Sensational. That was a sensational... I won't go to the camera. I'll go to this camera just yet. That was a sensational single. And I say that as being the single track I've listened to off this album. And I honestly feel that the first track off an album should be as good as any other singles released off of the album. Because you really need to show who is coming into your full release that the rest of the material is just as good as what got them interested in your album in the first place, you know? Typically people will sort of release shorter singles, like they'll be like 2 to 4 minutes, right? Because I know that certain streaming platforms, for example, they do prefer to have the track, they do prefer to have it in a position where it's like that shorter time frame, and how there's not as much of like a introduction to it, especially if they're sort of curating it. They'll want you to sort of get in with your vocals straight away, because they want to have a certain sort of stylistic sort of consistency, where like maybe every single they have, there's the vocals coming in quickly or some kind of BS. Because honestly, it's crazy just how much power streaming platforms have over the ability for artists to share their music nowadays. But Todd Underwood, anyways, getting back to Todd, his music sold it incredibly well. Upside Down, I think, I can only assume that would sum up a fair few of the most important themes off of the rest of the album without giving it all away. And I think that's really fantastic. That's really cool. The mixing and mastering is on point. I've got no complaints about that at all. The part where I was talking about the various vocal overdubs, I think it was just because of the fact that there was so much going on, and maybe it was because it was my first listen that I was kind of a little bit overwhelmed by how much was going on in that sort of interlude section. But I think also, given the sort of compositional sort of maturity, the intelligence that Todd Underwood has shown in his, songwriting within this track, I think that was maybe a deliberate thing to showcase just all the tension and chaos that was going on inside his own head, trying to cope with the situation. And then for there to be that break after that section, I think it just kind of stops. And you actually just kind of process what's happened without getting all sort of, without being overwhelmed by it. I think that's clever. Even if I didn't entirely understand what was going on, I think that nonetheless, artistically, that's a very good decision, because music doesn't necessarily need to be immediately understood. Sometimes it's worth creating something that people will think about later on and be like, oh, I get it. 5.5 minutes for a track nowadays is a reasonable amount of time. But what was really cool about the song is that it didn't feel like 5.5 minutes. It felt like a 2 or 4 minute single, because there was just so much content. The slow build in that intro was actually stunning. He slowly layered on bits and pieces, from little clicks to like the bass, and then sort of bringing those drums and guitars in different positions. And then he brought us all in at that 1 minute 10 mark. And that it effectively was that typical 1 minute intro track plus the 4 minute sort of starting track all in one. It was great. I think that, if Todd is recording in this caliber with this sort of authenticity and skill as a vocalist, because I haven't really talked about his vocal technique and his vocal delivery that much. I mean, it gets to a point where you just know a vocalist is completely spot on with the way they're sort of singing. It sounded like everything was comfortably within Todd's range. The vocal harmonies were interesting. There were some sort of fourth harmonies, I think, at some points, which added a little bit of sort of tension and sort of just a sort of a general sort of brightness to it. And I liked how he went between those harmonies and melodies in a way that made a lot of sense. Sometimes the vocals were a layering device where they kind of added more on to sort of increase the intensity. Well, it was really cool that he knew when to sort of pull it back a little bit, sort of scale it down and keep it nice and simple. To have as many different elements in the song as Todd Underwood did, and to keep it stylistically cohesive was fantastic and really promising. I really enjoyed listening to it, and I honestly wish Todd Underwood the best of luck in future, but I think that with a release like this, he probably won't need the luck. He's got it in the bag. I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything else I missed. I don't think so. I think that if this is any indication of what the rest of the album is like, it'll be a fun then listen to. Not necessarily a particularly positive, super happy, fun time, but I don't think the music needs to always be happy. Sometimes it's more important to be real with the audience and to sort of communicate in the way you want to and tell your story. And hopefully this has been therapeutic for him and he can move on and find a better future. But thank you very much for watching this review of Todd Underwood's Upside Down, the track off of his album called Upside Down. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please do check out Todd Underwood's various social medias and his Spotify, and as well as I think he's also got music on Apple Music as well. Stay cool, stay safe. Please also remember to support your local musicians at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next review. Spider hands out.